Fine. So we're in the Perek Zayin of Shar Teshuva, and in Perek Zayin, he started to talk about the different things that prevent Teshuva from taking hold. And one of them is the attitude that a person feels he could just continue to do the Aveira, that there isn't this concept of desisting from doing the Aveira. And the first point he made, and that's where we ended last time, was the fact that if you repeat an Aveira and you show no real sensitivity to it, you show a complete disregard for that Aveira, it really becomes almost like a blasphemous act. It's an act that, you're shirking, you just don't care. You're shirking your responsibilities vis-a-vis HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he uses a very strong terminology. He quotes psukim that he applies to this person that are truly very frightening, and that's a very big impediment. That's going to stop a person from doing tshuva, because you're so exacerbating what you're doing by repeating it and not caring that it becomes even a little aver, it becomes a tremendous aver, because you show you don't care. Okay, that's where we got up to, and now let's proceed from Umitam Nosaf Hadavar Kach, which is the second or third paragraph in Perek Zayin. So Umitam Nosaf Hadavar Kach, and there's another reason why the matter is thus, meaning the concept of repeating Averos leaves you in a very, very tough spot. And that's why it's very, very important not to get into bad habits. If a person consistently does an Avera, even if that Avera might seem small, it's not seen as one of the really major Averas, he nasas Avera Gedola. But through the repetition, it really becomes a very big Avera. Vilu Avera Gedola, and yet, ironically, if a person does a very severe Avera, so sometimes you'll say, this guy or this lady once did a horrific sin. She's in a real bad spot. I do some sins, but they're smaller sins. So I'm okay. I'm not nearly as in trouble as he or she is. But in reality, if you're not careful, it's not the case. You can be in a lot worse trouble, because a very big Aveira, amazingly, could be undone if you deal with it quickly, and while a very small Aveira could become a monster of Aveira if you let it continue to fester. A very severe Aveira, if a person does tshuva, and leaves that sin from a true sense of fear, awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so it's really rooted in the right motivation that a person understands, my gosh, how did I do that? I have to change my ways, and after a very, very severe Aveira, one recoils and starts moving away from the Aveira and starts moving towards the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's happening is you begin to diminish the Aveira step by step, day by day, by this person consistently focusing on the fact that I can't go back there, I have to do tshuva, I feel terrible that I did it, I'm leaving the sin, I'm making a Kabbalah, I'm following all of the guidelines of tshuva. Then from a horrifically big Aveira it diminishes as we keep going along. Incredible statement, till it becomes completely erased. And a lot of people ask that question, can I really totally undo it? Well, it doesn't mean that it's easy to get to the level of tshuva that undoes it, but the answer is yes. A Jew can completely undo a very severe Aveira if one follows the right guidelines and is sincere and doesn't get too enmeshed in constant repetition. Absolutely, you can completely erase the Aveira, where the language that he uses is very clear. The book that records all of the sins is it's not there. You look at the book, it's erased. So a person can literally go up to Shemaim after 120 years and think that, oh my gosh, but if they did the proper tshuva, all those averas are not going to be there. And a person becomes purified from the sin that they did. Interesting, the additional language here seems to imply really a twofold process. One is the avera is gone. Two, the residual damage of what that Avera did to your neshama is also gone. So Teshuva is not just about erasing the ledger. Teshuva is also about the idea of coming back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to attain your original status. That you haven't, you can come back to where you really want to be. And that's why, in a sense, it's two brachos every day in Shemona Esrei. There's Slach Lanu, which is the eradication of the sin, and the Hashivenu, which is returning to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that don't let the sin create a barrier between us, bring us back. And that's part of the Torah process that he's talking about over here. Halohin Charoa, take a look, he says, Kama Chazak Nasa Hachut Shel Meshi. Take a look, used by an example, you have a silk rope. When you fold it over many times, it becomes very, very strong. Its root is nothing. What's the root of silk? It's some kind of an excretion of some worm. Okay? So the roke, the secretion, the spit, so to speak, of a talas, of a worm, produces the silkworm, I guess they call it, whatever, and not familiar with the process, but that's how it happens. So here you have something so strong that when it's turned over, when it's folded over, it can become so powerful, and you can, who knows how much you can pull with that silk rope, where it started from nothing. So it shows you that even throughout looking at the Bria, looking at the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, the smallest, lightest, most insignificant thing could develop into such strength that you can pull a truck or something. Can you do it like is known? And yet conversely, what you see is Gamasefach. You see the exact opposite. Shechevel ove. You have a very thick rope. Shekoshim boyis esfina. You tie the boats, right? You have these very thick, knots that they make from the boats to be able to keep the boat by the shore, by the dock. If you spend a long time sort of roughing that rope and pushing it against the metal and just using it again and again and again, what's going to happen to the rope? The rope becomes less and less and less and less strong and less strong and less strong based on its usage. Till it completely rips, it becomes the weakest of the weakest things. So he's just showing you, sort of by, simile, I guess, or whatever the correct usage is, but some kind of a metaphor of what goes on in everyday life, that just by the laws of the mundane, you even see this concept that sometimes the thick becomes frayed and becomes almost inconsequential, and the smallest thing, which seems it's so inconsequential, could develop into something so powerful. Sin is the same way. You can have the biggest sin, and you can sort of weigh it down and fray away at it until it becomes completely diminished and it's erased, and you can have something seemingly very small, which again, it's a classical one, although, talking during the davening is not small, but a lot of people think it's small, yet it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. Certainly Lashon Hara, which, although is a very severe Avera, it's certainly not, doesn't have a death penalty to it, but, and again, if we're not careful, it could turn into an incredibly large snowball. Okay. In comparison to this mashal, to this example, Averis is the same way. The Aver, which is smallest in nature, could become very, very severe when you do it a lot. Either for the first reason of last time we learned, because you're sort of shirking completely the yoke of heaven from you, and it's almost like a blasphemous act. But here it's also the fact that the continuity just sort of ingrains it into who you are, and I guess the consistency of it just makes it that much more dramatic and that much more profound, that you keep doing it again and again and again. So vila vera to chamur bios, you can have a light aver becoming more severe. You can have a severe aver becoming lighter and lighter. When you do tshuva and you move away from it and you eradicate the sin from your actions, well, you can completely erase it. That's why you find, very interestingly, that the Navi does compare sins to ropes. Very interesting kind of parallel. And he's now pointing out, why did the Navi compare chet to rope? Because a rope has this double-barreled aspect. It can be thick and it becomes nothing, and it starts off nothing and it becomes very powerful. Right, as the pasuk says, woe to those persons who sort of pull the sin with the ropes of vanity, of nothingness, of emptiness. And the sin becomes like the avos hagola, the rope that pulls the wagon. So here you have this aspect that the rope can end up, the sin can become so strong that it can really pull anything, even though it starts off really very, very light and insignificant. Okay, so that's number 2. It doesn't really say it very, very clearly. You sort of have to surmise what he means by the repetition, why he makes it so severe. But it does seem. Let's see what he's, the way he synopsis. Yeah, so number 1, the way he explains it, this difference between aspect 1 versus aspect 2, the first aspect is you don't care. So you don't care. It's a blasphemous act. You're showing that you're completely mezalzel. You're cheapening mitzvahs. You're just taking one mitzvah and literally knocking it out as an irrelevancy, and that's horrible in its own right then and there. The second aspect is as you go and as you can just sort of get entrenched in that mitzvah, it's that entrenching makes it more severe. That you're just keep doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. The repetition per se just makes it very, very serious. That's point number 2. Okay, and now we're ready for point number 3. V'chutz mizeh, and besides all this, afil avera ketana, even a very light and seemingly insignificant avera, v'afim hinasas rak b'seis, and even if you only do it privately, you don't do it openly, you're not brazen about it, you keep it behind closed doors. Nechsheves aver gedol gluya. It's still considered very big and revealed. It might not, people might know about it, but in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes, it's out there. It's seen and known. As the pasuk says, "Al tabit el katnos haverush osisa." So this is like a saying that the Chovos HaLevavos quote. Don't look at the insignificance of the aver that you're doing. Ela habeit el gedulas Hashem shchataslo. Very wonderful phrase. Don't look at the smallness of the aver. Look at the greatness of God who you're sitting against. And therefore, when you think about it in those terms, it's not the action that really matters. It's your lack of readiness to accept God as your creator, in the sense that you're not willing to follow His wishes. So that's what you should be looking at. Don't look at the sin. Look at Hashem. Focus on that. Don't rejoice about the fact that nobody knows how rotten you really are. That you fool the whole world because, outside you look like this wonderful tzaddik, and then inside, everyone, doesn't know what you're doing, but you know what you're doing. I fooled everybody. Should be just the opposite. His avel, you should mourn al shabore ken yodea asmash hincha mastir. You should mourn at the fact that God knows your true colors. And He knows exactly how two-faced you are. That He's looking straight at you. And that, the recorder is playing. It's going to be on, YouTube sometime soon, but it's going to get out. Okay, as we know, now it's almost nothing that can remain secret. Everything seems to get out eventually. But the point is that if you focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you'll know exactly that who you're fooling, who you're kidding. So He looks at all your He looks at all of your actions, both hidden and revealed. And He remembers them more than you remember them. You forgot a long time ago. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't forget. There's no memory problems with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because He does not, you forget them, but he does not forget them. You sort of look the other way from them, you sort of, remove yourself from them, so to speak, but He doesn't. He knows exactly what's going on. He has a complete, exact accounting of every single thing you've ever done. So the notion that you think you're going to get out of this simply by, time is is a foolish mistake. As a pasuk in Yeshayahu says, "Neksuva lefanai lo yachsheb kiyim shilamti." He says, "Your sin is written in front of me. I will not be quiet. I will till I pay up what it's due in terms of the punishment for the sin." And furthermore, it says, "V'nemar chatas Yehuda ksuva be'eit barzel b'tziporin shamir." Very strong pasuk in Yirmiyahu, that the sin of Judah, of Klal Yisrael, of Yehuda, which is another reference to Klal Yisrael, it's written with a metal pen. It's etched all the way in B'tziporin Shamir with a nail that's like that's also like a type of metal, like an iron nail that it carves in permanently, and you just can't erase it because you think that it's gone, and you just don't want to do the hard work that really requires you to what really would erase it, and that's tshuva. So the idea that you're repeating the sin because it's okay, no one's going to really care, and you're sort of forgetting the fundamental principle that what about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So you're giving off an incredibly negative message by the fact that you think you can fool the world, and that's a very big problem. V'dov and no safe. I thought somebody had a question. Okay, v'dovra nosef hama'abris erko shel tshuvahu. And another factor of somebody who loses the true appreciation for what tshuva is, a thing that will dampen or diminish your value of tshuva. Another factor that is a big problem is shachote oses avera shuv. Another problem that a person confronts, so that he's going through the various issues of what are impediments to tshuva. So the first part is a 3-part aspect of repeating the sin consistently. If you keep going over again and again, he just laid out 3 different problems. And now he's going to another realm of what also is a big problem for tshuva, and that is a person, shachote oses avera shuv, that a person goes back to doing the avera. What do they call it when you're in rehab and you relapse into, so you're doing good, and then you relapse. So it's a frightening thing. This is a big chiddush that the Chozar was saying, because I don't think it's apparent from the Rambam this way, but he says very clearly, if you relapse, you've blown it. So if you've done an avera, it seems that you have to stay away from that avera, which it's frightening when we think about some of the averas that we try to do tshuva for, where we know, certainly you think of Lashon Hara, we're never going to go back to Lashon Hara, so if we ever go back, we speak Lashon Hara again. That means all the tshuva we try to do for the Lashon Hara doesn't count. I don't know. Maybe there's certain types of, mitigating circumstances, but the simple statement that he's making is exactly that. That if you relapse, then your tshuva is no longer relevant. You blew the deal. The whole idea was, I feel terrible, I'm not going to go back there, but you did go back there. So if you went back there goes your tshuva. So it's a very big impediment, the notion that, I've been good now for 5 years, I can treat myself to a special treat, and I'll go back to the sin just one night. It's no big deal. Well, it's a big deal. And through your repeating of the sin, you lose the tshuva, the earlier tshuva that preceded this terrible action. Even if you did tshuva properly, and he says, even if you did it 100%, as a pasuk in Yirmiyahu tells us, in the first parak, in Parak HaMaskal, in the parak that begins with this particular storyline, there was a matter that happened with Yirmiyahu, Shalach Ish Es Avdoi, that he basically told the Jewish people to send out their slaves. It was a Jubilee year, everyone has to go home, and everyone went home, but as they had pangs of missing their servants, and they had difficulty, so on the one hand they did tshuva, because they followed the laws of Yovel, so it was very good. They did what they needed to do, even though earlier they didn't do it, but then it started really to hit them, and they missed all their wonderful slaves, and they called them all back. So what do? You undid what you did. You meant to do the right thing, but you didn't keep it, so your tshuva now, became flushed down the wayside. So maybe you can argue, maybe you'll make a little bit of a split between this type of a relapse versus a totally independent relapse of another avera. Here it sort of was the same issue. You sent the slaves away to do tshuva, now you brought them back, so you undid what you did. Maybe with things like Lashon Hara, it might be different. Something to think about. Just want to try to find a ray of sunshine for us, is that we shouldn't be too down on ourselves after hearing that if you relapse, you've blown it. So, I definitely, it should not be a reason why we shouldn't do tshuva. I'm not sure everyone agrees with this, but certainly that's his point. His point is, don't allow yourself that situation, because you can be in a good realm, in a good mode of tshuva, and then basically it knocks it all out. Okay, that's another aspect. Here's another one. Another aspect which blocks tshuva and is an impediment to tshuva. Have a very common mentality. I got plenty of time. I'm young. I'll do tshuva. I recognize I have to do tshuva, but I'm in my prime. I'm in my 30s, my 40s, and 50s and 60s. So in my 80s, I'll get to tshuva. That'll be nice and easy, and it'll be private. I'll be able to do tshuva. And he's the person thinks like this. Yeah, I'll separate from all the others. Let me just taste all the sin that's out there. Let me just, chaparine, as they say. I'll grab all the sins, taste the forbidden fruit, and then when I get older, I'll recognize that I did something wrong, and I'll do tshuva, and it'll all be good. So let me, eat, drink, and be merry. For tomorrow, we'll do tshuva. So that sort of that mentality. That mentality, says, is disastrous. What you're doing is you're literally acting like you're trying to fool God. You're fooling Hashem. So you're playing this little game, and I'll do the Avera now, then he'll buy my tshuva later. What? You're fooling God? You play some kind of a game with him? About such a person, the rabbi is saying in Gemara Yuma, a person says, I will sin and I will do tshuva. Echtav Yoshev, I'll sin, I'll do tshuva. That's your basic philosophy of life. Again, Hoime Echtav Yoshev, Ein Maspikim Biyod Olasa Tshuva. That person will not be given the eventuality to be able to do tshuva. Because there are people who die in a split second. There are people who don't wake up from their sleep. There are people, God forbid, who die, in a car accident in a half a millisecond, and there was no tshuva.
Well, my father, Alzheimer's, just doesn't remember. So he was expecting to do tshuva at the end of his life. It just. Well,
okay, but there, I would imagine, and I'm just imagining. I know my mother also passed away from Alzheimer's. That it's a gradual kind of thing. So when a person knows that it's happening, there's certainly many times that a person could focus and think about it and say, feel remorse for whatever they might have done. When it gets to the point where they don't have any clarity at all, then you're right.
The issue is when you go with that mentality through life, is at the end you keep on doing averas, it changes your personality already. You're not the same person that I started at the beginning, maybe doing one or two averas. It just change completely who you are. So then by the end, you might not even thinking that you're doing averas.
Okay, well, that's
a wonderful person. Just is the way I am, and I don't care if I'm doing wrong.
I hear you, right? But he's saying that even if you keep that sign in and remind yourself every single day, enjoy now, we're doing tshuva later. Sin now, do tshuva later, and you never forget. But who's to say Akash Baruch Hu is not going to cut that person any slack? That's why I don't know, I didn't see it in the Sefer, but I remember when, I think it was 73, my first year in Eretz Yisrael, and of course, one of the things you have to do when you're touring Eretz Yisrael, especially as Yeshiva Bach, you have to go to the Arizal's mikveh in Tzfat, which is like really freezing cold. And maybe they just made it up to sort of convince us to do it, or it's truly a legit haftacha, but they said that, no, you have to go to this mikveh. I know it's like cold beyond your imagination, but there's a haftacha from the Arizal that anybody goes into this mikveh does not die without a hira tshuva, with a thought of tshuva. It's a very interesting type of haftacha. It's not the kind of thing you're expecting big brachas and be a wealthy person, all that. No. That's an amazing zchus, that if you do this, then you'll have that moment where you're able to think. I remember all the details of the story, but I remember a story where a person was helping out his friend, and the friend was dying, and this person, in order to help him, said the vidui with him in his room. It was in Eretz Yisrael. And there's a lot of other, hashkacha pratis aspects of how he got to that person. I don't remember all the details, but I remember the fact that he said vidu for this person, younger fellow, walked out, took a bus, the bus blew up, terrorist attack. And the amazing hashkacha that they said is, look, at this person he had said vidui with his friend, he was zocher right before he passed away, to say vidui. This is, so for those people who merit it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, has his ways of taking care of them. But, it's a story from probably 25 years ago. What?
Don't do vidui.
Well, you can't outsmart HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That stuff doesn't work. Okay, so now this is, again, I would say, somebody should really write up this paragraph, translate it, and make it into a nice little frame, and this should be up in everybody's house. Every Jewish home should have this next paragraph. So, in other words, what's the point? So right now we're focusing on the concept that one of the big impediments is the mentality of people to wait. Oh, I got plenty of time. So he says, no, you don't have plenty of time because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not give you the ability and the wherewithal and the opportunity to do tshuva if that's your attitude. And he wrote... the Chosava was saying, I wrote a very strong rebuke to Klal Yisrael. Shetimsa b'sofa sefer said that you will find at the end of this particular sefer, and he's now quoting from that Tochacha that he wrote at the end of the sefer. He's now giving us a little bit of paragraph of a glimpse into the message of what he wrote, and these are amazing words. I think probably a lot of things of these have been stolen by some of the secular world. But anyway, let's read it. I wrote as follows. Nafshi, my soul, he's talking to his own soul, he's talking to everybody else's soul. Heichini tzeidel roiv. Prepare a lot of provisions. Get yourself ready for the journey. Al tamiti. Don't prepare a little. Prepare a lot. Make sure you've got a lot of mitzvahs, in your sack, that you're in your luggage that you're taking with you for this long journey. While you're still alive and when you have energy, and there's still power in your hands, that's when you should be doing that. Because the journey is way, way greater than you can imagine. Don't say, I will take my provisions tomorrow. Because the day goes, the day passes on. And you don't know what every day brings. You have no idea. The idea of pushing it off is a foolish thought. And understand yesterday will never return. Okay, it'll never come back. You can't redo every day. And whatever you do in that time that you are given, shakul, weigh it, to suffer, count it, v'choshev, and calculate it. Be very focused, very analytical, very thoughtful in what you do and how you do it. And do not say, I'll do it tomorrow, because what? You know you have it tomorrow? The day of death from all living things is concealed. We don't know when each person's time is up, and therefore, how could you say, I get time tomorrow? You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Mari, hurry yourself. Asos b'choyom chukai. Do your obligations every single day. Make every day critical and important as a day of fulfilling HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. Because death at all moments can send its arrow, can send its lightning, and you just don't know. Please do not delay. Please do not in any way push off the obligations you have every single day. Kikatzipar no dedes min kana, just like the bird moves away from the nest, Kain ish no devim komo, so too man moves from his place. So this is a very strong admonition in sort of a poetic way to, get away from this mentality and just grab every single opportunity and every single day, because, as the secular expression goes, which is similar to this, every day, today's the first day of the rest of your life. So, what happened, we obviously, you can't go back, you can't undo unless you do tshuva. It's the only way you can go back in time. And we don't know the allotment of time, and therefore time is precious and valuable and needs to be acted upon immediately. Okay, so that's sort of a recap of the message of the previous paragraph. The davar hama'abres erech hatshuvahu, and another thing that destroys and undermines the value of tshuva in our lives is sha'adam chayzer b'tshuva al chelik ma'avanasav umamshich lasos chelik mehen. This is also frightening. I don't know what to do with this. We just have to learn it, but it's...
We'll take it.
Huh?
We'll take it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can take it. Basically, he's saying he looks at tshuva as a package deal. We look at tshuva, and again, I didn't really research how controversial this is in terms of other Rishonim arguing, but when we do tshuva, right, we say al chet on every single sin. We say shamnu on individual sins, but the way he's trying to say it is, well, we do that, maybe his point of view would be, we do that to cover every possible sin that we did. But at the end of the day, if a person sort of cuts his al-chet in half, and does an al-chet on half of his averis, but not an al-chet on the other half of the averis, that's not gonna work. Even though we think, well, what do you mean? I'll do half the job. There's no such thing. When it comes to tshuva, he doesn't seem to buy into the notion that there's half a job. It's all or nothing. Look what he says. Person does tshuva on part of the averos, but continues to do the other part of the averos. Kigoin, for example, he desists from doing the sins between man and God. And he does, and he returns from those sins with real tshuva. But does not desist and does not move back away from the averos between man and man, between one Jew and another. So the person's still, hurting people's feelings and doing inappropriate things, in terms of relationships. But I'm a tzaddik between ben olam makom. I'm a big tzaddik. So again, maybe you can try to say, well, the Chol Zavos just means this type of demarcation because this is sort of, it's sort of compartmentalized. What you only care between man and God, you don't care about man and man, but maybe if it's just sort of piecemeal, I don't know, it doesn't sound like that's what he's saying. It sounds like what he's saying is, you got to be all in. If you're doing tshuva...
Making a difference is because obviously it's a reality that we're falling into that trap. Could it be that because that's the way it's put out in kind of in the system that we keep on constantly improving over that. Otherwise,
right.
Settle into okay. I got to the level, and now what? Or I will stop just praying to Hashem, or I will stop being careful, and it's like it's constantly this spiral, no, going up.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's one way of we hook to Hashem that would never complete.
Well, yeah. There's no question that as we go through life, we have to keep going up that ladder to higher and higher levels. We have to keep trying, to get there. But specifically, a person has done averos and now wants to eradicate them and has some, as a checkered past. Let's say whatever that we all have things we have to undo. He seems to be saying you have to not be happy and satisfied with undoing some of them and not undoing the others. Okay, and he gives this as an example. That's not going to be acceptable. The Hainu, for example, what type of sins are considered the sins between Jew and a fellow Jew? Gazel, from thievery, maramros, trickery, maganeva, burglary, averes domos, and similar types of sins. Avamish osazos, and about somebody who does this, nemar, if oven biyadcha, if you have sin in your hands, harchikeyu, move them away. Do not allow sin to dwell in your home. So too the rabbi spoke about this matter. Person who has an avera in their hand and it confesses but doesn't go back and doesn't change from the avera that the person is now, admitting. Now again, the simple pshat, the simple meaning of this really is you did this particular avera. And now you say, I'm sorry. But while you're saying, I'm sorry, you're planning on doing the exact same thing. You're doing the exact same thing again. You haven't desisted. But he's applying it to a very different concept. He's applying this to the idea that I've desisted from some, but I have not desisted from the others. So he's extending this to a very interesting level that you would not have typically assumed. This is a very, novel statement that the Chozavov is saying. So, how do you compare such a person? So the way, let's learn the Chozavov's way, as opposed to the simple way. The Chozavov's way is, if you desist from some sins, or you do tshuva from some sins, but you haven't done tshuva from other sins, what is that comparable to? Lamahu daima, what's that person compared to? It's like a person who's holding a dead Tomei Dika rodent in their hand. You can jump into every single mikveh in the world. Okay, you can go and jump into all the oceans and all the mikvahs. Loi also tefillah. You will never be tar. What do you mean? I went to the mikvah. You went to the mikvah, but you're still holding the very same sheret that made you tamei in the first place. So how in the world do you think going to the mikvah is going to help? So if you're still holding, so again, the simple meaning is, you're holding on to the avera and you want to do tshuva. What kind of business is that? But he's applying it, even like I said, on a general level. You got to be ready to throw everything away. If you admit and you leave the sin, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have compassion. But you have to be ready to leave the sin. And the way he's learning, you have to be ready to leave all the sins. This is it's tough. Cain will finish up the parak. Cain ma'akvim es atshuvu ma'abdus erka kol advar ma'abdim es mashibarti b'sham ha'koymin. If you go back to parak Gimel, early in this gate, he spoke about other aspects that also are impediments and things that people have to be aware of. So he's just referring you back to those. I don't have to go over them in this particular chapter. But I already said them earlier. So these are a lot of different mental, perspectives and then, philosophies or attitudes that could be great impediments to doing tshuva. So certainly we have to keep that in mind. Bez Hashem, next time we'll be ready for Perek Ches.
Next time